From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Growing citrus, and we're not just talking about the Sunshine State.
We have a commercial industry now in Georgia of citrus.
Look at this growing ag industry in the Peach State. Have we seen the last of food inflation for a while?
The consumer is going to be very happy.
What lower prices could mean for the food industry as spring flooding finally gives way to the return of boat traffic.
I'm Michelle Rook. Barge traffic resumes along the upper Mississippi River. We'll have the update coming up.
The benefits of a return to normal on the mighty Mississippi right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Heavy snowmelt forced the closure of several locks along the upper Mississippi River, a key area in the movement of grain. But now we're hearing that several of those locks are about to reopen. AgDay's Michelle Rook has been following this story and she joins us with an update. Michelle.
High water levels and flooding along the upper Mississippi River have eased, allowing some of the locks to reopen and barge traffic to resume.
The river crested earlier than forecast, and river gauge readings from NOAA show river levels are easing in the north, with Winona, Minnesota at 12.6 feet and below flood stage. The river is at 18.2 feet at Dubuque, Iowa, which is at moderate flood stage and dropping. And farther south, Hannibal, Missouri is at 21.5 feet, just at minor flood stage.
We're exiting in most of these locations the major flood stage designation and moving into moderate flood stage or even minor flood stage. And that, certainly is beneficial to the communities that are adjacent to the river. For barge transportation, that's beneficial.
He says as a result, the Army Corps of Engineers has announced the locks on the upper Mississippi River that have been closed due to high water levels have opened or will reopen later this week.
What we're seeing is a number of these locks that the Army Corps of Engineers had to close for a period of time. Due to the high water levels, they're able to reopen those. Many of them have already been reopened, and we anticipate seeing the balance of those reopened in the next 2 to 3 days. So seeing that whole system, that upper Mississippi River system, roughly from Minneapolis, St. Paul, all the way to St. Louis being fully operational, which is good news.
Steenhoek says due to flooding and lock closures, there was some interruption of fertilizer movement going north, which had to be put on rail. But soybean exports were largely unaffected as the volume is modest right now compared to harvest season.
All right, thanks, Michelle. In other parts of farm country, the situation is much different. Right now, Kansas has the lowest pasture and rangeland condition ratings reported in the modern era. Now, here's the latest map from USDA showing conditions across the country. You can see overall 37% of pasture and range conditions across the country are rated poor to very poor. That's down 15% from last year. But zeroing in on Kansas and Nebraska, the news not good. Nebraska at 68% poor to very poor. That's up 5% from last year at this time. While Kansas is at 64% poor to very poor, up a whopping 29% from a year ago. Those areas hit hard by drought, as you can see in this video taken in southeast Kansas, courtesy of Southern Plains Perspective.
We still see a core drought area primarily encompassing the central and southern Great Plains, and that accounts for the vast majority of the remaining high-end drought categories, the D3s and the D4s. It stretches from Nebraska southward to Texas. As of May 2nd, we see 63% of Kansas in extreme to exceptional drought. That's up rather sharply when we were at 52%. Meanwhile, in Nebraska, 47% coverage of D3 and D4, up from 33% in late March.
Happening right now, traders are getting in position for the release on Friday of the latest supply-demand report. That's when USDA will update old crop ending stocks along with global production. We'll also get our first look at the new crop balance sheets. USDA Outlook Board Chairman Mark Jekanowski says this first new crop report could, of course, differ considerably from what actually ends up happening. And weather will play an important role in what those final numbers will look like.
But this is our starting point, and we will, from here, continue to update those forecasts, production forecasts, as more NASS data is released and as weather conditions change the yield outlook.
We'll also be keeping an eye on exports in this report with a massive Brazilian corn harvest and what that means for product coming from the U.S. But the center and northern high plains are finally seeing some more rain. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with a closer look.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Clint. And as we talked about yesterday, kind of two pieces to this equation, giving us some rain through the central and northern plains. The first one is a low pressure system coming in out of the Rockies, and that is going to be kind of the major player. You can see it right there for our Wednesday afternoon into our Thursday. That's going to be the main focus for some rain across the central and northern plains. The second part of this is right down here into Houston, Louisiana. As I put this into motion, you'll see a weak low that's going to bring a substantial amount of rainfall into Texas and Louisiana, upwards of to a foot of rainfall. That next low pressure system is going to work out of the Rockies and back up here to the north. So we have a pocket of some moisture back into Missouri associated with that one low pressure system, and another one getting wrapped up with the one coming out of the Rockies. So through our Thursday into our Friday, kind of two sections that we could get some rain in and across those central and northern plains, where of course we certainly need it. And a great day at Lakeville Junior Senior High School in Lakeville, Indiana. The school hosting its own AgDay. It's a chance for elementary school students to learn about farm animals, equipment, and farm operations. Over 700 students took part. It wasn't just an event for FFA members and high school students to show off their hard work, but also for the community to come together to show the importance of agriculture. A great day for sure. I'll have more on your forecast coming up in just a bit.
Florida is the latest state to take on foreign farmland ownership. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signing several bills earlier this week, including one that bans China and other nations that are called foreign countries of concern from buying land for farming or land that is within 10 miles of airports, power plants, and military installations.
Today, Florida makes it very clear we don't want the CCP in the Sunshine State. We want to maintain this as the free state of Florida, and that's exactly what these bills are doing.
The other countries of concern listed on the legislation are Iran, North Korea, Russia, Venezuela, Cuba, and Syria. China cancels more cargoes of corn, and that bled across the entire U.S. grain complex on Tuesday. We'll have details coming up next. And later, Georgia is known for peaches, but it's also trying to keep a budding citrus industry growing today in the country. Some good news about food inflation for consumers. One economist says we could see a return to pre-COVID levels by next year. A recent report from Wells Fargo says the numbers are trending towards 0% to 4% food inflation by the year 2024. Michael Swanson is the chief ag economist for the financial services company.
But they're going to see much lower food inflation. But that doesn't come without stress to the industry, because as food manufacturers and retailers still deal with trailing expenses, they're still struggling to find what's the right margin, what's the right price point, where do I get the volume and the sales for this price point. And it's not going to be easy because they've been able to make that adjustment at the price level, but as that is taken away from it, it gets pushed back into their world, and there's going to be a lot of difficult decisions being made at food manufacturing, wholesaling, and retailing as we revert back to a lower food inflation environment. So
Swanson says we likely saw the peak for food inflation last summer. On Tuesday, private exporters reported the cancellation of more than 10 million bushels of old crop corn for delivery to China. That was just one of the things adding pressure to grains. Michelle Rook has the full rundown in today's markets now.
Grain markets were mostly lower on Tuesday, except for the hard wheats. And Garrett Toy with Ag Trader Talk is joining us. Corn and soybeans under pressure, pretty significant pressure on Tuesday, Garrett. Was it just technical in nature because we hit resistance, or was it fundamental pressure from, say, fast planting pace in these China cancellations?
A little bit of everything. I mean, we don't certainly have any bullish outputs. We even had fairly negative outside markets, risk-off type trade with crude down $2 at one point. We staged a late rally in crude, but the grains were unable to see any of that support. So, we were weaker, not necessarily expecting a 10 to 15 lower day in corn or a 20-25% lower day in beans by any means. But with the Chinese cancellations, we traded corn up to the Fibonacci resistance, and we posted a doji yesterday. Then with big outside date lowers in both corn and beans today, really kind of gives you the impression that it's just a bounce and it's still a bear trending market.
Did we also have some bearish anticipation here going into the WASDE reports, especially when we start looking ahead at new crop, or not?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at some of the trade guesses for this Friday's WASDE report and the initial looks at new crop S&Ds, hard to judge it. I mean, the new crop S&D is going to be the largest since the trade war in corn. The beans numbers aren't quite as bearish as that, but the market is really building in a bearish position ahead of this report, which at the end of the day potentially could present a sell the rumor buy the fact type reaction to it. But and we're going to have a change in the weather patterns if that's going to be the case.
Yeah. So do you see a lot more downside pressure going into the WASDE here on Friday then, or not? And where do we have to hold from a support level technically?
513 last week's low, 513.25 last week's low in D's corn is very important. Or that's going to try to keep us from trying to make a move to $5 and sub $5. November beans, the psychological 1250 number, which was coincidentally Tuesday's low here at 1250.5. Like I said, the bean S&D isn't as necessarily bearish as the corn for new crop, but the market position is the most bearish thing there in a market that is not necessarily conducive to investment in agriculture.
Okay, thanks for joining us. That's Garrett Toy with Ag Trader Talk. More Ag Day coming up.
To contact Garrett, call him at 888-745-2020 or find him at agtradertalk.com.
Yeah, I wanted to revisit this map. We looked at it yesterday, but I think it kind of highlights where we're expecting a decent amount of rainfall to come through the United States. So you got the flooding potential into our Wednesday and also into our Thursday. We'll start with the Wednesday. That low pressure system in the Gulf of Mexico bringing a 40 to 70% chance of some flooding conditions into Texas, just a little bit into Louisiana. And you can start to see those two sections of the atmosphere that we talked about a little bit ago. You got the one with that low that's going to carry that flooding potential back up here towards the north, and then the other low pressure system coming out of the Rockies, which is going to impact parts of the Dakotas, including Rapid City. As we go into our Thursday, you can see the focus shifts with some heavier rainfall with the storm coming out of the Rockies, or that low out of the Rockies, and then the one coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. As we follow that moisture, there's about a 5 to 15% chance of potential flooding back up to the north and into the Midwest. That includes parts of Illinois, even into Indiana. That's about a 5 to 15% chance of flooding. Into Friday, we start to separate the two into the kind of the two moisture plumes, working back to the east, another more to the north, including the Dakotas. So where we need some of that rain, we're starting to get it, especially if you haven't heard, the wildfires up in Canada certainly need the rainfall. As for your Wednesday, this is at 7 o'clock at night. You got that low pressure system down here to the Gulf, and then that storm system moving out of the Rockies, which is going to bring in rain, possibly some thunderstorms into the Dakotas. Can't completely rule out some snow, I almost said hail, snow in the higher elevations with, again, that moisture back here with that low pressure system Thursday and into Friday. So the overall trend to include some of the wind right around that low, we're going to get some breezy, if not windy conditions on the backside, or I should say the front side of that low coming out of the Rockies. Check out New Mexico, but also back up here into Denver, as well as in Nebraska and Oklahoma, with that next system. We'll jump on over to Madison, Wisconsin. Partly cloudy, high around 78 degrees, low of 53 degrees. Wichita, Kansas, 86 degrees, mostly cloudy, low of 63. Roswell, New Mexico, get ready for some showers, high around 70 degrees.
U.S. pork is flying off the shelves. We have the latest export numbers coming up next. And later, Florida, Texas, and California are known for citrus. But Georgia is trying to make a name for itself, how the state is fighting to keep a budding industry alive in the country. Some good news when it comes to pork exports right now. March exports were the largest in nearly 2 years. The U.S. Meat Export Federation saying that pork exports were up 17% year over year and the 9th largest volume on record. Export value was also the 9th largest, up 18% from a year ago. Rounding out the first quarter, U.S. pork exports, they're up 14% from last year. Mexico setting the pace in March with the 2nd largest total on record. Indonesia is reporting an outbreak of African swine fever, the disease found on a farm in the Riau Island near Singapore. That's according to the World Organization for Animal Health. The outbreak detected on April 1st killed more than 35,000 pigs within a herd of 285,000 pigs. The outbreak was then confirmed later last month. Although the source isn't known, Reuters reports veterinarians told officials that humans, vehicles, feed, flies, and wild boars may have played a role. Florida is known for its oranges, but Georgia is working to preserve its own citrus industry even as production dwindles at its neighbors to the south. Details next. And hey, livestock producers, we want to celebrate you. Zoetis and Farm Journal are out to recognize livestock producers who have a big impact on feeding our communities. They're holding the Zoetis Freedom Recognition Sweepstakes by Farm Journal beginning today and running through May 27th. You can register to win a special edition golf bag or the grand prize, an amazing American flag wall display that we will be giving away on air the week of May 22nd. Just head over to the website on your screen, zoetisus.com/Freedom Recognition Sweepstakes to enter for your chance to win.
In the Country on Ag Day is brought to you by Pivot Bio. What if you had the nitrogen you need already on seed? Pivot Bio is the first company to apply nitrogen on seed. The nitrogen you need, now on seed, from Pivot Bio. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
The citrus industry is relatively new in Georgia, but it's experienced rapid growth in recent years. However, it's also been hit with several challenges, particularly with diseases that can destroy entire groves. John Holcomb of the Georgia Farm Monitor reports on a business that is both growing trees and promoting the industry's safety.
2 years ago, this greenhouse full of young citrus trees was just a dream for Lindy Savell, owner of Georgia Grown Citrus here in Thomas County. However, as you can see, that dream has now flourished into a reality, one in which Savell grows a variety of different citrus trees designed to be more vigorous and suitable in colder climates.
To be successful in Georgia, you really need to have a tree on a cold hardy rootstock. If you buy it from someplace else, it may not even be on a rootstock. It might just be grown from a clipping, or it might be on a rootstock that is an aggressive grower and less cold hardy. So that's the first thing. You want to have a rootstock cold hardy in nature. And then it has to come from a certified rootstock seed. And then the next thing is our trees are budded, very similar to grafting, but it's a bud being placed on the rootstock. And that needs to come from a certified mother tree or a scion tree.
Not only are Savell's seeds and rootstocks USDA certified, so is her greenhouse, which means all of their trees are kept in a disease-free environment and are tested before they're allowed to sell them.
We have people in neighboring states, Alabama, Mississippi, that drive all the way here to purchase trees, but also we ship trees throughout the U.S. We've shipped to Maine, to Washington, and down. If you're looking for a tree, citrus tree, you want it to be one that's grown in an environment that is close to being disease-free as you can get it, and that's what we're striving for is disease-free trees. Florida, our sister state, has lost 80% of its production due to disease, primarily citrus greening, which is a devastating disease. Oftentimes takes about 5 years for that disease to surface where you know something's wrong with that tree. So you might have a tree that you buy today that it might not show disease for years down the road, but it's so important. We have a commercial industry now in Georgia of citrus, and we've got 500,000 trees in the ground and lots of 150 plus growers who are planting this for commercial production. So it's so important that we protect their investment, our investment. We also have a commercial grove as well. So you put out a lot of money, you want to protect it from disease. Citrus is one of the highest disease potential commodities that there is.
Reporting in Otlockney for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
And our thanks to the Georgia Farm Monitor for sharing that story with us. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
Closed captioning on AgDay is brought to you by BASF, helping you do the biggest job on earth.